this equipment and I look at the type of cable, that SE cable is what it appears to be in this. It could be something else, but I look at that, think it might have been something they were doing on a temporary basis, where they were pulling something into the equipment. And you can see this is the damage. Look at the residue on the face shield from, that the electrical worker had on. The electrical worker did pretty well in this. You'll see some of the PPE that he was wearing later on in the program, probably tomorrow afternoon. He had, if I remember the story correctly, he was wearing 11-calorie clothing, and they figured the event was actually a little higher than that, and he fared pretty well. I do some work with OSHA. I do some expert witness testifying. It's not something I really enjoy very much, being an electrical contractor myself. The last thing I want in an electrician, the last thing I would enjoy is making another electrician look bad. So that's not my goal in life. So I don't do a lot of it, but the one thing that it does give me is a tie to OSHA, and so I do a few cases a year, but basically, and they're very time consuming on top of that. But the point of it all is that what I'm really happy to hear is that when the OSHA compliance officers get a report of an incident, immediately they're thinking serious injury. And the good news is that the PPE is actually performing well, if not better than what we expected it would do under those conditions. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, from the employer standpoint, when you look at this, and I deal with this in a lot of different areas as well, as I'm sure you all do as well, especially as a contractor. If you're an electrical contractor, a lot of times folks don't want to shut things down, and a lot of times they'll bring in an electrical contractor to try to get that done energized, as opposed to using their own employees to do it. So again, it's an interesting concept, but when you look at the risk of doing energized work, assuming I can get past the justification piece, which not everybody pays a lot of attention to, quite honestly, these are the types of results that I get. So if this was actually a temporary installation, ultimately I really would be hard pressed I'd have to have some reason really why I didn't shut this equipment down and tie this cable into the system. Why didn't I do that? I had an arc flash. I didn't know it was an arc flash. I didn't call it an arc flash. That occurred to me back in the late 70s, early 80s. And all we were doing was tying a circuit in a machine shop in a 480 volt, 400 amp panel. And there was absolutely no reason why we couldn't de-energize that panel. We didn't have a second shift going at that time period. It was right at the end of the day. Like I said, it was just the way we did work. We weren't expected to do it any other way, and we didn't expect to do it any other way. And that equipment, fortunately, didn't get damaged to the extent that this does. But one of the things that I always like to point out in the classes is, a shutdown at this point looks pretty good. Before this happens, the shutdown is lost money, it's lost income, it's inconvenience. There's a lot of things that go along with doing energized work. I work at a couple of refineries in the country, and they never want to shut anything down. And we'll talk more about that later on, because we get into these 45-minute, not us here, but at the refinery, I get into these large discussions about why I can't shut something down, because there's a greater hazard that can occur if the equipment gets shut down in an unorderly fashion. And I'm thinking, well, how can that be justification for doing energized work? Because if something like this happens, don't I create the same thing I was trying to avoid? So you go back and forth on this, and then in the end you find out that it just costs a lot of money to shut things down. So obviously a scheduled shutdown can be a much more appealing thing if you really look at the big picture. So a lot of statistics, I'm sure you've heard most of them. Over 8,000 electrical contact injuries referred to in the United States. So that's dealing with processes. Even though 7E's been out there for a while now, we still don't have a lot of data on the arc flash, actual arc flash.